Republican Party, Tina Khidashvili and Paata Zakharishvili, about to leave their positions as ministers. Buses adapted to special needs, 143 new buses in Tbilisi bus park. Youth Startup Perspective, innovative program supported by state, is tested for its effectiveness.
Good evening. You are watching GIPA Time with Tea Gubinadze and Nurlan Husseinov.
Good evening. Tina Khidashvili and Paata Zakharishvili are going to leave their positions as ministers. The chairman of the parliament, David Usupashvili, has announced today morning on special briefing. See details in Tatuli Omiadze's and Ainur Nabili's report.
Defense Minister of Georgia Tina Khidashvili and the State Ministry for Reconciliation and Civic Equality Paata Zakharishvili are going to leave their positions. Republican Party held a briefing today morning where the chairperson Khatuna Samanidze made an announcement.
Two ministers, Paata Zakharishvili, Tina Khidashvili, Defense Minister and the Reconciliation Minister, will resign in few days and they will join the election campaign. But Gigla Gulashvili, the Minister of Environmental Issues, will stay on his position, but unfortunately he decided to leave the party and stay as a party-free minister in Minister Cabinet.
As Usupashvili said, the party wanted both of the ministers to stay on the position, but Georgian Dream made another decision. The party started its pre-election campaign.
Today we announced the start of our election campaign. We announced our number one on the parliamentary list and the leader of the campaign, David Usupashvili, who is the Speaker of the Parliament currently.
The member of Republican Party, David Berzenishvili, stated that he will be the leader of the party in Ajara.
After 25 years, I'm going to run for the position of a chairman of Ajarian Supreme Council.
Republican Party is going to take a part in elections which will held in October.
Another Georgian from Pankisi died in Syria today. According to latest news, Ruslan Kaftarov is 19th Georgian who died while fighting with ISIS. He has been in Syria for 10 years.
Our correspondents had a phone conversation with Kakha Kupatadze, a reporter of TV Imedi Kakheti Bureau. We offer you the entire interview.
During military activities in Syria, a citizen of Pankisi Valley, Ruslan Kaftarov, was killed. The information was spread today morning. 34 years old Kaftarov was from Duisi. He left Georgia 10 years ago with his family. From 2014 he was fighting with ISIS. Another citizen of Pankisi was killed yesterday. 22 years old Beka Tokhorashvili was also in Syria. Family members refused to give us the interview, and we of course did not demand it. We have information about his past, that he was security member of Tarkhan Batirashvili.
Two elevators for with special needs are still broken. Part of the city center is adopted, but only formally. Nino Abdaladze reports about the barriers that people with wheelchairs face every day.
Typical day for Mariko Kobakhidze starts at Children and Youth National Center. She has been working here for 3 years, conducting trainings about the rights of people with special needs. Her working place is adapted to wheelchair, but before getting there, she has to pass through the barriers in the city.
As you know, we have adaptation problem. We don't have ramps for wheelchair or elevators. Another issue is that the society's awareness is very low and drivers park their cars on ramps. Therefore, I think that a lot of work should be done to raise this awareness. The drivers should finally know that ramps for wheelchairs are for us and they should not park the cars there.
Mariko's mother comes to the center every day and helps her daughter to get home safely. they have to take taxi instead of public transport. Public transport in the city is not adapted to people with special needs.
In this country, it's possible for people with any kind of mobility problems to travel by public transport. And not only for the entire community of people with special needs. That includes people who are visually impaired, who travel by wheelchair, or who use crutches. It's impossible to move in a city if you don't have a strong will to fight with this society, with this environment, and can travel with the help of others.
In 2014, 2 special elevators were established in the center of the city to adapt the underground system. But at the moment, both of them are broken and cannot be used.
The City Hall's approach is really bad. First, a lot of money is spent for special elevators, about 150,000. And when we ask why they are not working, the answer is that Georgians are vandals, and the elevators for people with wheelchairs are broken because of violent acts.
We
cannot guarantee that there would be no damages or acts of vandalism would not happen. Because unfortunately, a lot of people think that the elevators are for entertainment and do not understand the true purpose of them. We cannot guarantee this, but of course it does not free us from the responsibility. Instead, we should work more actively so the equipment is accessible for people with special needs and is highly protected.
Until public transport is adapted and special elevators fixed, people with wheelchair have to find an alternative way to travel. Social taxi is a transport specially designed for people who travel by wheelchair.
The fund of Bank of Georgia, Tree of Life, announced a grant competition for the projects aimed for children with special needs. We applied with this project with this idea and it was financed. During the project we bought 2 cars that are adapted based on European standards.
But social taxi is not accessible to everyone based on its price.
The tariff for social taxi is not so expensive as people and specialists say. It's 4 laris for taxi to come to your destination and then 80 tetris for each kilometer.
As Mariko says, she does not use social taxi because it is expensive. Most of the time she has to overcome the barriers in the city. One of the main insurance companies in Georgia has not established special pass for people with wheelchair. So Mariko cannot enter their office. Mariko has to wait for 20 minutes in the middle of the street to get her insurance policy.
Things might change in the nearest future. 143 new buses adapted to people with any kind of special needs should be added to Tbilisi bus park from September. Tbilisi City Hall and tender winner company signed the agreement today. Details in Nanuka Brigadas and Zura Mamagulashvili's report.
New 143 buses will serve to citizens of Tbilisi from September 2016. The presentation was held in Iberia Blue Hotel. As the mayor of Tbilisi, David Narmania, says, buses are wide and 12 meters in length. They work on natural gas engine and are eco-friendly, but they won't be able to drive on narrow roads because of the size. Total number of buses that currently serves Tbilisi is 700.
We won't stop on this, and we plan to renew the rest of the buses as well during following years.
New buses will be adapted to the people with any kind of special needs.
When we talk about physical accessibility and adaptation issue, our society's biggest request is to have the public transport that is adapted for people with special needs and fulfill various necessities.
The City Hall announced tender on 22nd of January and 7 companies took part in it. German company MAN won the tender considering ecological, economic and security issues.
We're one of the safest bus because a lot of people are a little bit afraid about gas, but we have systems of German technology which provide really a safe bus.
The project was implemented with financial support of European Bank for Reconstruction and Development.
The EBRD is providing a loan of $27 million that is complemented with a grant from a fund called E5P that is precisely for environmental purposes of another $7 million. So in total we are mobilizing $34 million.
The citizens of Tbilisi have different opinion about the issue.
I don't use buses myself, though most of the population does. If these new buses will be more comfortable, why not? If these new buses will serve people with special needs, it would be great.
The decision is good, but the thing is that the city mayor should think about homeless and hungry people who live in poverty right now.
New 100.
Blind and visually impaired people find Blind Union Cultural Center as a place for development. Some argue that the center hinders the integration of beneficiaries into society, while employed people with special needs are satisfied with offered opportunities. Mariam Abbasadze explored the issue.
Blind Union Cultural Center is the place where blind or visually impaired people use their skills and knowledge. There are different activities here. They are producing sound books, sorting them according to users' demand. They have a library, the magazine publishing mainly blind or visually impaired people's works. They have men's and women's folk groups. 57 people employed here. They enjoy one another's company and are happy with their job. Tsira Bepkhwadze and Amiran Ghoghatze are the longtime friends. They have common passion, poetry. One is the director of Blind Union Cultural Center and another is the editor-in-chief of the magazine called Light. They are happy with their job, but low salary is their big challenge.
As the editor-in-chief of the magazine Light, my salary is 300 laris. Then it reduces according to a hierarchy and becomes lower and lower. It is approximately from 200 to 300 laris. Folk group members have even lower, but they are less busy. They are going 2 days a week when we are going every day.
Salary is not the only problem. They have a larger scale issue, inability of their integration into the society, not having barrier-free environment, and working or standing beside other people. The fact that main visitors at Cultural Center are blind people highlights it more.
We're organizing evening staging performances, holding meetings with the modern writers. Therefore, we have pretty many visitors. They are blind people who are living near to us and people from the city as well.
ზოგადად ანუ
ეს არის ჯერ კიდევ საბჭოთა კავშირის დროინდელი პრაქტიკა, რომელიც სამწუხაროდ დღესაც ვრცელდება, რომ არსებობს
In general, this is a practice from the Soviet period, which unfortunately is still going on. There is a separate settlement in Down Ponichala where are concentrated vast majority of blind people. They have also their cultural center there. Earlier they had their own industry and in fact they did not come out of the city. People did not meet blind people on the streets, in educational institutions or workplaces. Actually, there was not the real integration into society. Therefore, this isolation has been caused exactly by this fact for many years.
While Mikiashvili considers it to be the old practice, Tbilisi City Hall finances the magazine of blind people and thinks that it is the part of integration.
In 2015, we supported blind people by the guides. We call it Conductor Program. We are also financing Blind People's magazine Light, which is only published in Braille. Only Blind Union publishes this kind of magazine. It provides blind or visually impaired people information not only in the cultural field, but any information that is important to know for them.
It happens very often when the governmental bodies, that will be the ministries or local government, finance some minimal project or program and then they think they are free from the fundamental and supreme responsibilities toward people with disabilities. In addition, the fact that these small initiatives are funded by a very small sum, if I tell it roughly, they try to keep silent the people who work there or whose initiative it was.
According to Health and Social Service Department, they elaborate 3 years program which provides a full range of adaptation for people with disabilities. But before it happens, Blind Union Cultural Center still remains the only place for meeting one another.
Compensation of loss of local families from Swanidze Street still continues. Some of the houses there were destroyed, some of them were damaged by the disaster. Maradi Etsava is reporting how the compensation process is being conducted.
This is Karen Karapetiani. He used to live here. One year has passed after the worst flood in Tbilisi, Georgia. This flood ruined several streets, one main square and state zoo. 21 people were dead, 2 missing and around 240 families affected. Some houses were totally ruined by the river Vere, some were half damaged. One of the streets mostly affected by the flood is Swanidze Street, located in the center of Tbilisi. Karen Karapetiani was not official owner of the house, though his family lived in that building for 53 years.
My house could be renovated, though it was afforded the first category and then dismantled. Government offered me to compensate the money by the house dimensions, which composed 36,000 laris. It is impossible to find a house in Tbilisi for this amount.
Because of the problem in official documents, his case is still unclear. Karen lives with his relatives now, though he comes to Swanidze Street every day and spends all his time here, in his neighborhood. 9 houses used to stand on this field and 16 families used to live here. These houses were totally damaged. In future, a small park is going to take this place, and those houses which survived are going to be reconstructed. Murman Cantorishvili's house was afforded the second category, which means that the building somehow survived. He decided to do the renovation for any cost. He has to find initial finances and then the government compensates the money within the budget of 80,000 laris. Murman often helps the workers himself to get the house done soon.
Government compensates the money for the fulfilled work. We have a stated budget and within this budget they return money to us.
Sandro was also living on the street. His house is also in the second category.
The categories were separated in this way. If the expenses exaggerated 50% of the property, it was first category. If the expenses were under 50%, then the house was in the second one.
Khatuna's house was covered with mud, but her house was reconstructed soon.
The expenses for my house were about 30,000 laris. Those two houses, which are still under reconstruction, appeared in worse situation. The buildings lost even the basements. They were in such a bad condition that everything needed to be rebuilt.
Residents of Swanidze Street are making renovations because they are sure that the same won't happen again.
All the material that blocked the riverbed is demolished now. The river itself took away all the buildings, dog shelter, garages and blocks. Nothing is left there, so if the river rises again, it will follow its bed.
In the administration of Bakë district, the head of department Teona Tzkhadadze refused on-camera interview, but she also claims that there is no more risk that the river changes its bed again. In the city hall, Carlo Laperadze, the head of property management agency, says that the government did not decide how the residents of Swanidze Street would be treated.
We offered the owners two choices. One was experts' decision about the cost of the property and the residents would get corresponding amount of money. And the second choice was to get the finance appropriate to the number of family members. The residents could make a choice between these two versions, nobody else.
He said that after a year, most of the work is done.
After a year, we can announce that process is mostly finished. There are several cases which are not clear yet, but these cases depend on the problem of property belongings.
After a year on Swanidze Street, some have already got back to their ordinary lives. Some have started all over again. Though the neighborhood looks different, most of them don't want to leave this place, even if they don't live here anymore.
Pope of the Rome is visiting Georgia and Azerbaijan in September. On October 1st, Pope will hold a Mass on Mikhail Maske Stadium. Mariam Abasadze asked Georgian citizens about the upcoming visit.
ეს ფაქტი ძალიან მახარებს, რადგანაც საინტერესო იქნება მისი ჩამოსვლა აქვს სოფლიო ასპარეზზე მას გაიგებენ საქართველოს არსებობის შესახებ და ქვეყნისთვის ძალიან წინგადადგმული ნაბიჯი იქნება.
მე მაგალითად მივესალმებ პირიქით. არის ყავთ მაგას მიმდევრები საქართველოში ძალიან ბევრი ქართველებია. თვითონ კათოლიკე ქართველები ხომ არიან? მაგათაც ხომ უნდა?
აჰა, მშვენიერია. რომის პაპი თუ იკადრებს საქართველოს ჩამოსვლას, ეგ უკვე მშვენიერია.
თქვენ თავში წახვიდეთ ქვეყნიდან.
დიდი სიამოვნებით.
ძალიან კარგია სასწრაფო რომ ჩამოვიდეს რაღაცა თქვენგან. ძალიან კარგია. მაგრამ გაჭირებულ ხალხზე არ უფიქრია არავის, რაც მე თვალი გავახილე.
დადებითი არის, იმიტომ რომ მივესალმებით, რომ საქართველო ძალიან ტოლერანტი ქვეყანაა, როგორც რელიგიური თვალსაზრისით, ისე ყველა მხრით.
თუ ჩამოდი, ძალიან კარგია, მე მგონი, ქრისტიანული სარწმუნოების წარმომადგენელია და რასაკვირველია, ერთ-ერთი მნიშვნელოვანი ფიგურა არის ქრისტიანულ სარწმუნოებაში.
მე მივესალმები დიდი თანამდებობის პირის ჩამოსვლას და მით უმეტეს რომის პაპის ჩამოსვლას საქართველოში. მას დახვდება ჩვენი პატრიარქი ალბათ აქ.
და ეს არის საქართველოსთვის ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი მოვლენა.
118 people already participated in Tech Park project for innovative ideas. Some of entrepreneurs succeeded, while others still have some concerns about the program's efficiency. Is the support really efficient, or are we still far away from prospective space for startup business development? See details in the report.
არა, ცენტრალურ დეტას არ გეუბნები. ცენტრალურ დეტალთან ხო არ ჩანს ეს სარჩული. ეს გეომეტრიულად რა მონაკვეთების ხილების პონჩი კონდეს რა? ხო, მაგას თორემ გადამოწევებული იქნება. აი გახსოვს იმ ჩვენთას რა ქონდა?
Tina and Mariam permanently discuss how to refine their wooden bags, a bag that emerged within a startup project called Populus and extended as a successful business.
იდეა როგორ დაგვაყვა. მე და მარიამ ერთად ვსწავლობთ და
Mariam and I studied together. We were classmates. One day we met each other and thought to do something together. We decided to create bags and beautify them with Khafsurian embroidery. Working considering the national culture would be more interesting for Georgian consumers as well as for foreign ones.
But the idea needed to be realized, and girls started to search for supporters. Tech Park, a space for innovations under the Ministry of Economics and Sustainable Development, appeared to be the most suitable one. More specifically, a periodic project started the business with FabLab that began in September 2015. It supports startups, entrepreneurial ventures typically describing newly emerged, fast-growing businesses. FabLab is equipped with high-tech machines that Tina and Mariam needed for creating a prototype and producing their bags. The project offers trainings about marketing, management, branding, technical and theoretical resources needed for a company to be formed. Participants search for materials to use and create a prototype of a product. After the training part, participants have to search for sponsors. This stage appeared to be the hardest for Tina and Mariam. State project does not consider to help startups to find sources of money. After sharing the experience of previous participants, girls agreed that searching for private sponsors had no sense as well. First investment they made from their own scholarships amounted 400 laris. First revenue of 365 laris was from the exhibition sale on March 8. Tina and Mariam continue producing their wooden bags and even manage to enrich them with different details. Girls believe the reason of their success was the past experience of making handmade accessories, good marketing packaging, love to their own product, but especially availability of startup capital.
We were lucky compared to other startups. There were companies that did not have any financial resource, managed to create just one prototype, and could not continue producing. Dimitri is one of those participants who stopped producing as soon as the project started the business with FabLab ended. Manually processed 3D wooden puzzles called Kvudi is new on Georgian toy market.
Everyone knows that today each toy is dangerous for children, but my toy is ecologically friendly, no paints or additives are used, and I think it will be interesting for children and adults as well because each detail will be packed separately with instructions, and I believe adults will be interested too because the toy has a function of a puzzle.
Problem of funding overweighed the advantages of the product. Good sales on the exhibition could not change anything as well. Dimitri speaks about the limitation during the practical part of the project as well.
We had a 2-week time period, but there were 15 groups and it somehow caused rows for the equipment. Despite that, each group had approximately 10 hours. For example, for me, this time was not enough because processing of my product takes much more time.
Tina and Mariam also mentioned that they have been left without time to use the equipment several times. From June 17, a new project, Startup Georgia, began. Partnership fund via collaboration with the Georgia's Innovation and Technology Agency offer a capital from 15,000 to 100,000 lari for each innovation. In this model, program's beneficiary has to submit 10% of the investment. His business idea will be considered as a joint capital with 14% deposit. The beneficiary becomes a 50% shareholder in a new company, and the rest half is possessed by the government. Even 10% of capital can be a barrier for beneficiary. Dimitri, for example, is not going to participate in a new project, as he does not have money and he is not strong enough to share the business with anyone, even with the government. Sandro Asatiani, founder of innovative technology laboratory GEOLAB, notes that funds in foreign countries offer more strict terms for startups.
The project itself is very interesting because if you have just 10% and need 90%, then the government finances the rest. But asks for 50% in return and not 90%, that is good as well. And it's because to have a lever to see how the business develops. This 10% is not to bring from home. You can interest some businesses telling that you have 90% from the project and need just 10% from them.
From 118 people registered in the project, 51 still continue producing. Tina and Mariam are among them.
That was all for today. Thank you for your attention.
Watch GIPA Time tomorrow at 6 p.m.